She plunged into the frigid depths of the Chicago River, a desperate leap for freedom from the gilded cage of her billionaire father. The black security guard who dragged her back from the darkness unknowingly launched a seismic shift that would redefine both their lives forever. The Chicago River spread out like an endless strip of oil beneath the towering skeleton of the Michigan Avenue Bridge. Exactly 2 a.m. 29-year-old Isabel Whitmore stood on the freezing concrete walkway, barefoot. Her platinum blonde hair was a wild, whipping banner in the merciless October wind, and her wide blue eyes were locked on the black, churning water 20 feet below. Her white silk blouse, a pristine luxury item, clung perfectly to her slight curves, already damp with sweat despite the cold. She had discarded her designer heels, and her gleaming Cartier watch was useless now. None of the trappings of her privileged life mattered. They were the instruments of her captivity. Behind her, the sudden, violent screech of high-performance tires shattered the quiet city night. 3 black SUVs slid to a stop. Charles Whitmore emerged, a 70-year-old man radiating the sheer, concentrated force of $8 billion worth of absolute, unyielding fury. His meticulously maintained silver hair was disheveled, and his weathered face was flushed a dangerous shade of red from raw rage. "Isabel, you get down from there now." She turned slowly, deliberately drawing out the moment, forcing him to witness her resolve. "I am not your property, Dad. You are a Whitmore. That means responsibility, tradition, and order." He took a sharp step forward, flanked instantly by 2 massive security personnel. "Stop this dramatic nonsense and come home." "Home?" Isabel's voice cracked, not from fear, but from the searing pain of years of suffocation. "That prison where you control the air I breathe. You arranged my marriage to Richard Thorne without so much as asking me. I'm 29 years old, and I have never made a single choice for myself. I absolutely refuse to let you choose my husband. You are being melodramatic. We will get you the professional help you clearly need." "I don't need help. I need freedom." The bare soles of her feet were aching with the penetrating cold of the concrete. "I am done being your chess piece. I am done being a business asset to be traded or sold." She spun back toward the abyss of the river, her heart pounding a frantic, desperate rhythm against her ribs. She was not suicidal, only overwhelmingly desperate. "One more step closer, and I jump," she whispered, aiming the threat not at the depth, but at his control. "Don't be ridiculous, Isabel." Isabel jumped. The impact of the water was brutal, the icy shock stealing the air from her lungs as surely as a physical blow. The cold carved into her body like serrated knives, instantly paralyzing her muscles. The relentless current snatched her, spinning her violently into the crushing darkness beneath the bridge supports. She had only ever swum in temperature-controlled, chlorinated pools. She had never known the brutal, primal strength of a real current. Panic exploded in her chest as the black water filled her mouth and lungs. Then, strong, anchoring hands clamped firmly around her waist, pulling her upward with stunning force. Someone was swimming, moving through the treacherous water with powerful, coordinated strokes that defied the current. She broke the surface, coughing violently, sputtering, fighting for breath. "I've got you. Stop fighting me." The voice was deep, resonant, and impossibly calm, cutting through the chaos. He was a black man, perhaps 32, with broad, powerful shoulders, efficiently slicing through the water with trained strength. He hadn't hesitated. A complete stranger had plunged into the freezing Chicago River to save her life. "Who?" she choked out, shivering uncontrollably. "Doesn't matter now. Just focus on breathing." He swam one-armed, cradling her securely, fighting the vicious undertow that threatened to drag them both under the massive concrete pilings of the bridge. Isabel's body was already shutting down from the hypothermia, her limbs growing heavy and numb, but the arms holding her were a fortress of warmth and security. They finally reached the murky embankment. He lifted her out gently, his movements precise, before hauling his own drenched, powerful frame onto the cold stone. He instantly stripped off his soaked black security jacket, heavy with river water, and wrapped it tightly around her shaking shoulders. An ambulance is on the way. You are going to be okay. Isabel finally looked up, really seeing him. Dark brown skin, close cropped, neat hair, and intense, concerned brown eyes. His white shirt clung to his muscular frame, water dripping from his jawline and neck. She focused on the small embroidered crest on his jacket sleeve, then his name badge, Deshaun Carter, Whitmore Security Services. You work for him, she whispered, the realization like a secondary shock. Deshaun's expression remained carefully neutral, controlled. I work security at the Whitmore building. Tonight I was off duty walking home. He met her gaze directly, holding it without flinching. I didn't save Charles Whitmore's daughter. I saved a drowning woman. There is a difference that you need to understand. Sirens wailed far above them on the bridge. Charles's furious voice screamed fragmented orders down into the dark chasm. Deshaun didn't spare a glance upward. His entire focus was fixed on Isabel. Why did you jump? Because I am tired of being owned. My father treats me like an asset, a corporate holding, not a person. I would rather have died free than live another hour in his cage. Deshaun was silent for a long moment, watching the misery swirl in her eyes. My mother cleaned houses, including houses like yours, for 30 years. She used to talk about the miserable rich people, trapped by their own expectations and their inherited names. Being poor and free always beats being rich and owned. But you don't have to die to be free. You just have to be brave enough to walk away. You don't understand the hold he has. I understand perfectly. Your father cannot legally force you to marry anyone. You are an adult, Ms. Whitmore. You are scared because you've never had to fight for yourself. But drowning? That is not bravery. That's surrender. The ambulance arrived, along with Charles's formidable entourage. EMTs rushed toward the embankment, but Deshaun positioned himself between them and Isabel, a solid, protective barrier. I'm not going with them, Isabel stated, instantly recognizing her father's security detail swarming the area. They will just take me back to him. She needs medical attention, but she is terrified of her father's staff, Deshaun told the EMTs, his voice authoritative. What are her options if she refuses transport with his people? Sir, are you family? No, but I pulled her out of that water, and she is a consenting adult with rights. Charles shoved his way to the front, his fury momentarily replaced by a sickening veneer of parental concern. Isabel, thank God. Her voice was raw, stripped of control. Stay away from me. You did this to me. You drove me to this point. I am your father. You are trying to control me again. She stood shakily, Deshaun's hand steadying her elbow. I am done being your puppet, Dad. Charles's face hardened, the veneer cracking completely. Carter, get her in the car now. Deshaun did not move an inch. Sir, I am off duty, and Ms. Whitmore does not consent to go with you. You work for me? Damn you. Do what I say or you are instantly fired. Then I'm fired. The declaration was crisp, final, and utterly devastating to Charles. I will not force a terrified woman into a car against her will. Not for you. Not for anyone. An electric, cold silence fell over the bridge crew and the rescue workers. Charles stared at his former employee, his face turning purple with impotent rage. You have no idea what you have done. I will make sure you never work security in this city again, you understand me? That is your choice, sir. Deshaun turned back to Isabel, his gaze unwavering. And it is also Ms. Whitmore's choice where she goes. And I am pretty sure she is choosing anywhere but with you. 3 hours later, Isabel sat in a brightly lit, worn Pilsen diner, wrapped in borrowed Northwestern University sweats. Deshaun sat across from her. Both nursed terrible, chest-racking coughs. The EMTs had checked Isabel, minor hypothermia and shock, but she had vehemently refused hospital transport, terrified of the psychiatric hold Charles would certainly impose. Deshaun had located dry clothes through a friend and brought her here. Why are you helping me? Isabel's blue eyes were still red-rimmed and exhausted. You just lost a prestigious job because of me. I've had worse jobs, and I couldn't just walk away after pulling you out. Most people would have followed the orders of an $8 billion client. I am not most people. He wrapped his large hands around his coffee mug, focusing on the cheap ceramic. Look, Isabel. I saw a woman so desperate to escape her father that she risked her life in a freezing river. That kind of desperation is serious. She stared into her coffee, seeing her reflection swimming in the dark liquid. He has planned my life since birth. Every school, every internship, every single relationship. When I dated someone he didn't approve of, a musician, not a corporate pawn, he destroyed that man's small startup business. He ruined his life just to prove a point. That is exactly who Charles Whitmore is. He sounds like a monster. He is. And he will do the exact same to you. My father has connections everywhere, the police, politicians, corporate boards. He will blacklist you professionally and personally. Let him try. I am not afraid of Charles Whitmore. You should be. Maybe. But I am more afraid of becoming the kind of man who helps bullies just to keep a paycheck. He leaned forward, dropping his voice. What is your plan now? I don't have one. The admission was humiliating, painful. I have never had to make my own plan. I have a friend. She runs a women's shelter on the south side. It's a safe house for people escaping dangerous domestic or personal situations. Your father cannot reach you there. A shelter? The automatic rejection, the inherent snobbery of her former life, surfaced instantly, but she quickly forced it down. That automatic judgment was exactly what kept her trapped. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Deshawn pulled out his phone, showing her a news alert that had just popped up. It's already started. The headline was brutal. Whitmore heiress suffers mental breakdown. Father seeks emergency conservatorship. Isabel's blood ran cold. The hypothermia suddenly replaced by icy dread. He can't do that. He's claiming you are mentally unstable due to a suicidal attempt. He's arguing you require immediate legal control for your own protection. Deshawn's jaw was tight with anger. He is moving fast. If he gets conservatorship, I will never be free. He will control my money, my decisions, everything I do. Not yet, he doesn't. But we need to move out of here now. They left through the back entrance, walking briskly toward his 10-year-old, reliable Honda Civic. As they drove south, Isabel watched the familiar city landscape undergo a profound transformation. The gleaming, anonymous towers of the Loop gave way to dense neighborhood streets, storefront churches, and vibrant corner stores with signs painted in both Spanish and English. I have never been to this part of Chicago before, she said quietly, realizing how narrow her world had been. Most people from your world haven't. But this is the real city. This is where actual people live and struggle, not just exist in million-dollar penthouses. They pulled up to a modest, 2-story brick building, the windows guarded by heavy metal bars. Haven House. Deshawn tapped a specific code on the door. 3 quick knocks, 2 slow ones. A safety protocol. A black woman in her 50s opened the door, her eyes sharp and utterly no-nonsense. Deshawn Carter, you better have a good reason for showing up at 5 in the morning. Hi, Aunt Renee. I need a massive favor. Renee looked past him at Isabel. Expensive, borrowed clothes, unmistakable platinum hair, and blue eyes wide with terror. A flash of recognition crossed Renee's face. That's the Whitmore girl. She needs help. Her father is trying to file for emergency conservatorship right now. She is not safe. Renee studied Isabel for a long, assessing moment, then stepped aside. Come in, child. You look like you've been chased by demons. The inside of the house was immediately warm, welcoming, and lived in. The furniture was mismatched. There were colorful children's drawings taped haphazardly to the walls, and the rich, comforting scent of coffee was brewing. It felt real and human. Nothing like the cold, minimalist perfection of the Whitmore penthouse. Sit down. Renee pointed to a worn couch, disappeared, and returned instantly with heavy blankets and steaming herbal tea. Now talk. I want the real story, not the crap they're running in the news alerts. Isabel told her everything. The forced engagement, the constant surveillance, the 29 years of control disguised as protection, the jump, Deshawn saving her, and her father's instant, ruthless move for conservatorship. Renee listened without a single interruption. When Isabel finished, she sat back, thoughtful. Your father is a piece of work, child. But he can't force a conservatorship unless he proves you are genuinely a danger to yourself or others. The jump complicates things, yes, but you are an adult. You have rights. He has the best lawyers in the state and endless connections. He'll try to bankrupt me just to control me. He will try. But I know someone who can help. A lawyer who specializes in these complex abuse and control cases. She is brilliant, and she does not care who your daddy is. She looked pointedly at Deshawn. Nephew, you understand what you are signing up for here? Charles Whitmore will come after you with everything he has. Hard. I know, Aunt Renee. You'll lose your security license, your reputation, maybe even more than that. I know, Aunt Renee. Why? For a girl you just met hours ago? Deshawn looked directly at Isabel, then back at his aunt. Because it's the right thing to do, flat out. And because I'm tired of watching powerful, rich men destroy people just because they can. Renee nodded slowly, a profound respect in her dark eyes. You are your mother's son. She would be proud. She turned back to Isabel. You can stay here as long as you need, but child, freedom isn't free. You are going to have to fight for it. Really fight. Are you ready for that war? Isabel thought about the brutal cold of the river, about the impulse to give up, and then about Deshawn jumping in after her, refusing to let her drown. She thought about Renee opening her safe door at 5 a.m. to a stranger. She thought about the terrifying, exhilarating possibility of owning her own life. Yes, she whispered, then stronger. Yes, I'm ready to fight. 2 days later, Isabel sat in the office of Maya Rodriguez, a fiercely intelligent Puerto Rican lawyer with streaks of defiant silver in her black hair and walls covered with framed legal victories against powerful, entitled men. Let me be extremely clear, Maya stated, reviewing Charles's filed documents. Your father filed for emergency conservatorship claiming mental incompetence due to a suicide attempt. He has 3 high-profile psychiatrists who are prepared to testify you are unstable and dangerous. He's also got Judge Hammond assigned to the case, and Hammond owes Charles Whitmore several significant favors. So I've already lost. I didn't say that. He's playing dirty, but dirty is just different, not necessarily winning. Maya offered a sharp, predatory smile. What he doesn't know is that I have the video from the bridge. Deshawn, who had been standing by the window, spoke up. I made absolutely sure the city traffic cameras caught everything, including Charles threatening Isabel and cornering her before she jumped, including her stating clearly that she wasn't suicidal, just desperate to escape. That radically changes the entire narrative. Maya continued, tapping a manicured nail on the desk. This was not suicide. This was an escape from psychological and abusive control. That is very, very different legally. A tiny flicker of hope ignited inside Isabel. Can you beat him? Honey, I've beaten bigger bastards than Charles Whitmore. But you have to understand, he will make this ugly. He will drag up every therapy session, every small struggle, and twist it into evidence of incompetence. Can you handle that public smear? I can handle anything except going back to him. Maya nodded approvingly. Good. We file a countermotion right now. We present the evidence and paint the real picture. An adult woman escaping profound parental abuse. We will also file for a restraining order against Charles. He's her father, Deshawn observed. Will a judge grant that? If we prove a long, documented pattern of control and coercion, absolutely. Maya pulled out more documents and a thick pad of lined paper. Isabel, I need you to document everything. Every single time he controlled your choices, monitored your movements, destroyed a relationship he disliked. Everything. Over the next long, agonizing hours, Isabel wrote it all down. 29 years of golden handcuffs. The boyfriend whose tech startup mysteriously lost all funding after Charles expressed disapproval. The job offer at the museum that was rescinded within minutes of her father making a courtesy call. The childhood friends who disappeared when Charles found them inappropriate. The hidden cameras installed in smoke detectors, the phone tracking software. By the time she finished, tears had stained and blurred the pages. Deshawn, reading silently over her shoulder, looked physically ready to punch through the nearest wall. This is abuse, he stated flatly. Straight up, Textbook abuse. Yes, Maya agreed, gathering the documentation. And now we have proof. The hearing is in 4 days. Your father's lawyers will try to have you declared incompetent before then. We are stopping that cold. But Isabel, the things he will say in that courtroom will hurt. Can you sit there and withstand it without breaking? I don't know, but I have to try. Deshawn moved closer, his presence a shield. You won't be alone. I'll be there for every minute. Maya raised a skeptical eyebrow at Deshawn. And here I thought this was just about doing the right thing. Deshawn met her knowing gaze without flinching. It is. They spent the afternoon preparing. Maya coached Isabel on potential courtroom questions, focusing on how to remain calm under hostile attack and how to present herself as competent, despite her father's malicious claims. As evening fell, Deshawn walked Isabel back to Haven House. The October air was cold, but it was a merciful kind of cold, nothing like the brutal chill of the river night. Thank you, she said quietly, pulling her borrowed jacket tighter. For everything. For saving me, losing your job, and still being here. I still don't understand why you risked everything. Deshawn walked in silence for an entire block. When I was 15, my cousin got caught up with a bad street gang. He wanted out desperately, but they wouldn't let him. They said he was their property, their asset. One night he ran. They caught him and they beat him almost to death. He survived, but he was never the same person. I watched him live in profound fear for years until he finally left Chicago entirely and started over in Atlanta. He stopped and looked at Isabel, his eyes shadowed with old pain. I always thought if someone had just helped him earlier, stood up to those guys when they were powerful, maybe he wouldn't have lost years to that fear. When I saw you on that bridge, Ms. Whitmore, terrified of your own father the way my cousin was terrified of gang leaders, I saw the exact same thing. Someone trapped by powerful people who believe they have the right to own them. So no, I am not walking away. Someone should have helped my cousin sooner, and I can help you now. Tears pricked Isabel's eyes, suddenly understanding the depth of his conviction. I am so sorry about your cousin, and I'm sorry you lost your career because of me. Don't be. That job made me compromise myself daily, working for a company owned by men like your father, protecting their interests while they hurt people outside the building. I am better off now. What will you do? I'll figure it out. Always do. Actually, Aunt Renee offered me some work here at Haven House. Security, maintenance, whatever she needs. The pay is terrible, but the work matters. They reached Haven House. Inside, women and children were gathered for dinner. A communal meal of rice, beans, and chicken filled the house with a comforting warmth and the murmur of conversation and laughter. Isabel had never experienced anything so grounding. Renee waved them over. Sit. Eat. You both look exhausted and ready for battle. As they ate, Isabel listened to the stories exchanged around the table. Women who had escaped brutally abusive partners, mothers rebuilding after addiction, teenagers aging out of the foster care system. Each one fighting for freedom, for safety, and for a chance at something better. You're all so incredibly brave, Isabel said softly. A young woman named Sophia laughed, a harsh, knowing sound. Brave? Honey, we're just stubborn. Too tired to quit and too angry to go back. That is exactly what bravery is, Renee said firmly, stirring her tea. It is not the absence of fear. It is deciding you're finally done being afraid. She looked at Isabel. 4 days until your hearing. For days to find your deepest fight. The morning before the court hearing, Maya called an emergency meeting. Her expression was grim, dangerous. Problem? Isabel asked, dread tightening her chest. Your father's team just leaked your entire medical history to the press. Every therapy session, every prescription, every private struggle, all public now. Isabel felt sick, nauseated by the violation. That's confidential. He broke the law. It is, and he did. But the damage is done. The headlines are brutal. Unstable Whitmore heiress. Mental health struggles. All the stigmatizing garbage. He's poisoning public opinion before we even set foot in court. So he is winning. Not yet. Deshawn looked up from his phone, his eyes cold and focused. Because I found something of my own. Charles Whitmore's own medical records. Everyone stared at him. Maya spoke first, sharp and quick. How? I still have friends at Northwestern Memorial. Friends who remember my mother, who Charles treated like dirt when she was dying of cancer, still cleaning his corporate office until she literally couldn't stand. Deshawn's voice was hard, tight with years of suppressed righteous anger. Your father has been seeing a psychiatrist for years for documented anger management and control issues, including several violent incidents with staff members. Isabel's stomach dropped. He hit people, his drivers, his assistants. He got them to sign NDAs and paid them off handsomely. I have testimony from 3 people willing to break those NDAs now. They're terrified, but they're willing to tell the truth about him. Maya was already texting furiously. This changes everything. If Charles has documented rage issues and a history of violence, it completely undermines his claim that he is the stable, protective parent. She looked at Isabel, her expression softening slightly. Did he ever hit you? No, but... Her voice shook. He hit my mother. I saw it once when I was 8. She made him promise never again, and as far as I know, he kept it with her. But I never forgot the look in his eyes, like she was an object that had simply malfunctioned. Your mother, where is she now? She died when I was 12. Brain aneurysm. Isabel's throat tightened with sudden grief and new doubt. My father always told me it was genetic, random. But now I wonder, was it the stress? Years of living with him, years of that control. Silence filled the room, heavy and absolute. Then Maya spoke, fierce and determined. We're going to destroy him. Not just beat him, destroy his facade. He wants dirty? We'll show him dirty. Over the next 24 hours, Maya built a case that went far beyond a simple conservatorship defense. She documented Charles's pattern of abuse, control, and violence. She lined up witnesses, former employees, a few medical professionals, and even business rivals who had secretly seen his true, vicious nature. Isabel spent those hours in a strange, unsettling calm. She had been terrified for days, but now, knowing the truth was about to be laid bare, she felt almost peaceful. Her father had hidden behind his reputation, his money, and his carefully constructed image for decades. Tomorrow, everyone would see the monster she knew. The night before the hearing, Isabel couldn't sleep. She found Deshawn in Haven House's small kitchen, drinking coffee and reviewing their legal notes. Can't sleep either? She asked. Too wired. Tomorrow is going to be intense. They sat in a comfortable, deep silence until finally, Isabel spoke. Deshawn, after tomorrow, after this is over, what happens to us? He looked at her carefully, genuinely. What do you want to happen? I don't know. I barely know you. But you have done more for me in 4 days than anyone has done for me in my entire life. You saw me at my absolute worst, and instead of walking away, you jumped in. Why? You told me about your cousin, but that's not the whole truth. Is it? Deshawn was quiet for a beat. No. The whole truth is, when I pulled you out and I saw your face. Really saw you, not the Whitmore name or the heiress status, just you, terrified and desperate. I saw something. I recognized someone trapped who was trying to find a way out, against impossible odds. And I thought, maybe I can be the person who helps this one. Maybe I can make a difference when I couldn't help my cousin in time. So this is about redemption? Maybe partly. But Isabel. He reached across the table, his calloused hand hovering near hers. It's also become about you. About the woman brave enough to jump into a river rather than live a lie. About the person who is finally learning to fight for herself, even though she's terrified. That woman is absolutely worth fighting for. Isabel reached out and took his hand, feeling the rough calluses, the sheer strength, and the deep warmth. After tomorrow, I am going to be a mess. My father's fortune will be tied up in legal battles, and I'll probably have to start over with nothing. Build a real life for the first time. I don't even know who I am outside of being Charles Whitmore's daughter. Then maybe it is time to find out. And maybe you don't have to figure it out completely alone. The moment hung thick between them. Possibility, connection, something profoundly real emerging from the chaos. Then Renee appeared in the doorway, her eyebrows slightly raised. You two better not be falling for each other in my kitchen at 3 in the morning. I run a respectable establishment here. They both laughed, the tension breaking in a shared gasp of relief. Renee poured herself a coffee and joined them. Isabel, tomorrow is going to be the hardest thing you have ever faced. Your father will say the most terrible things. He will try to make you look weak, unstable, incompetent. Are you ready? I have to be. That is not what I asked. Are you ready to face the man who controlled you for 29 years and tell him no? Really, truly ready to walk away forever? Isabel thought about the cold river, about the temptation of surrender, and then about these last 4 days at Haven House. About women like Sophia who had rebuilt entire lives from ashes. About Deshaun who had sacrificed his entire career for a stranger. About Maya fighting battles no one else would touch. About the terrifying, uncertain, yet exquisitely real possibility of freedom. Yes, she said firmly, her voice clear. I'm ready, because I'm done being his daughter. Tomorrow I become my own person. I don't care what it costs me. Renee nodded, a look of fierce pride settling on her face. Good. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow we make history. As Isabel finally lay in bed, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. You can't win, Isabel. Come home and I'll drop the conservatorship. Keep fighting, and I'll destroy everyone helping you, starting with that security guard. You have until morning. That. Isabel stared at the message, her father's final, desperate attempt at coercion and control. She deleted it immediately and turned off her phone. Tomorrow, she would show him that some things cannot be bought, controlled, or destroyed. Tomorrow she would be free. Judge Hammond's courtroom was packed wall to wall. Media representatives sat shoulder to shoulder in the back rows. Charles Whitmore's legal team, 5 expensive lawyers in impeccably tailored suits, sat grimly on one side. Maya Rodriguez sat alone on the other, Isabel rigid beside her. Deshaun sat directly behind Isabel, a silent, powerful anchor of support. Charles sat across the aisle, his silver hair perfect, wearing his expensive navy suit, radiating the cold confidence of a man who always wins. Immaculate, his suit tailored to perfection, faced the picture of concerned fatherhood he had carefully constructed. He avoided looking directly at Isabel, executing a calculated performance designed to demonstrate he was above petty emotion, focused solely on her long-term well-being. The door creaked, and Judge Hammond entered the courtroom. He was a 60-something white man with deeply etched tired eyes, notorious in legal circles for his reputation of favoring established money and entrenched power structures. Maya had specifically warned Isabel that the judge would likely be inherently hostile. Charles's lead attorney, Gerald Stevens, a man polished to a sheen of expensive legal expertise, stood first. His measured, almost mournful opening painted Isabel as tragically mentally ill, dangerous to herself, a vulnerable young woman desperately needing her father's loving protection through the mechanism of a conservatorship. He heavily referenced the recent jump from the bridge, her long-standing medical history of depression, and vague, alleged erratic behavior. Mr. Whitmore only wants what any devoted father would desire, to keep his daughter safe from the dangerous impulses of herself. Stevens intoned, promising to demonstrate through specialized expert testimony that Ms. Whitmore is demonstrably incapable of managing her financial and personal affairs and therefore requires immediate, compassionate intervention. Maya's opening was a stark, exhilarating contrast. Sharp, honest, and delivered like a surgical strike. Your Honor, she began, her voice cutting through the stuffy silence of the courtroom. This case isn't fundamentally about mental health, it is about the absolute, suffocating desire for control. Charles Whitmore has spent 29 years systematically controlling every single aspect of his daughter's life. When she finally, desperately tried to escape that control, he didn't offer help or support. He immediately sought to have her declared legally incompetent so he could maintain that control permanently, sealing her in a gilded cage. We will prove unequivocally that Miss Whitmore is a competent, thriving adult escaping systemic parental abuse, not a mentally ill person requiring restrictive conservatorship. The legal battle began immediately. Charles's team first called Dr. Warner, a forensic psychologist, who testified based solely on Isabel's private medical records, records that were somehow illegally obtained and submitted to the court. He claimed the records showed severe depression, chronic anxiety, and recurring suicidal ideation. Maya systematically destroyed him on cross-examination. Dr. Warner, you have never actually met, interviewed, or assessed Miss Whitmore, correct? No, but her records, her confidential medical records, illegally leaked and somehow conveniently in your possession. Maya interjected, leaning into the illegality. You are basing your entire professional assessment on stolen, unverified documents and sensationalized media reports. Furthermore, I submit the records show a young woman who sought out therapy, which is an inherently healthy and responsible act, not evidence of legal incompetence. Have you, Dr. Warner, reviewed Mr. Whitmore's medical records? That's not relevant to Miss Whitmore's competency. Actually, Your Honor, it is extremely relevant. Maya submitted a binder of documents. Charles Whitmore has been seeing Dr. Patricia Chun for mandatory anger management sessions for the past 7 years. He has been prescribed multiple medications to control severe rage issues and has a documented history of violent outbursts. Why isn't he the one needing a comprehensive conservatorship? The courtroom erupted in a low, shocked buzz. Judge Hammond banged his gavel several times for order, but even he looked visibly intrigued. Charles's face, usually impassive, went a mottled, dangerous red. They broke for lunch recess. In the dim hallway outside, Charles cornered Isabel while Maya was momentarily on the phone handling a logistics issue. You are making the biggest mistake of your life, Charles hissed, his voice low but saturated with menace. This lawyer, this common security guard, they're using you to make a name. You will be ruined. The only person who ever used me is you, Dad, Isabel retorted, finding a new, startling strength. And I'm done letting it happen. You'll have nothing, he vowed, stepping closer. No money, no famous name, no future of security. I'll have freedom, she whispered, meeting his gaze without flinching. That's more than I ever truly had with you. Deshawn materialized instantly, placing himself calmly and definitively between them. Mr. Whitmore, step back now. Charles looked Deshawn up and down with pure, aristocratic contempt. You, a nobody security guard who couldn't even keep his simple job. And you actually think you have the capacity to protect her from me? I already did, Deshawn replied evenly. I pulled her out of that freezing river while you stood on the bridge, more worried about the PR crisis surrounding your reputation than whether your own daughter lived or died. I could utterly destroy you, Charles snarled. You already tried, Deshawn countered. I'm still standing, and I'll keep standing between you and Isabel for as long as she needs me. Maya rushed back, firmly pulling Isabel away. Don't engage, Isabel. He's trying intentionally to rattle you before the afternoon session. The afternoon brought the real, bruising battle. Charles took the stand, playing the role of the grieving, bewildered father to absolute perfection. He testified tearfully about Isabel's troubled childhood following her mother's death, her subsequent struggles with anxiety, and his overwhelming worry. I just want my daughter to be healthy and safe, he insisted, wiping an eye theatrically. This isn't about control. It's about fundamental protection. Maya's cross-examination was surgical, executed with lethal precision. Mr. Whitmore, you secretly arranged for your daughter to marry Senator Morrison's son without her explicit, enthusiastic consent. Correct? I introduced them. They were compatible. Marriage was actively discussed and planned without your daughter's consent. Yes or no? Yes, but it was for her own good. You tracked her private cell phone without her knowledge, monitoring all her movements and communications. Yes or no? Yes. You had hidden cameras installed in her private apartment without her permission. Yes or no? Yes. And finally, you intentionally destroyed her college boyfriend's fledgling business after she dated him against your direct wishes. Charles hesitated, his composure finally beginning to crack. That's an outrageous claim. That's not in my submitted documents. It is in ours, Maya stated flatly. We have submitted phone records showing multiple calls between you and his primary investors. We have emails discussing the immediate and hostile pulling of all funding. You financially sabotaged Michael Chen's startup purely because he was dating your daughter. Yes or no? Silence hung heavy in the air. Charles's mask slipped entirely, revealing the raw, furious anger simmering underneath. He wasn't good enough for her, he spat out. That was not your choice to make, Mr. Whitmore, Maya declared. Just like it is not your choice now whether she lives under your suffocating control or as a free, sovereign adult. Maya turned powerfully to the judge. Your Honor, we have 3 former employees prepared to testify to Mr. Charles Whitmore's documented history of physical violence, obsessive control, and flagrant abuse of power. This man is not a concerned father seeking help. He is a tyrant who cannot accept his daughter is an adult with the right to her own life. Judge Hammond looked intensely tired, yet undeniably interested. Call your witnesses, Ms. Rodriguez. Maya's first witness was Patricia Chun, a former Whitmore household employee. She was a small Asian woman in her 60s, visibly terrified but fueled by a quiet determination. Mrs. Chun, how long did you work for Charles Whitmore? 12 years. Housekeeper, cook, assistant. During that time, did you witness Mr. Whitmore's behavior toward his daughter? Yes, she whispered, clutching her hands tightly. He controlled everything. Who she talked to, where she was allowed to go, what she was permitted to wear. If she disobeyed him, he'd threaten to cut off her money, her education, everything. Once, when she was 16 and snuck out to a school dance, he locked her in her room for a full week. The courtroom collectively gasped at the severity of the punishment. Did you ever witness physical violence? Patricia's hands shook uncontrollably. Yes, she confirmed, tears welling. He threw things. Once, he grabbed Isabel's arm so hard, so violently. She had deep bruises for days. She was 23 and wanted to take a job in California. He screamed, "No Whitmore works for anyone else." When she kept arguing, he shoved her against a solid wall, made her promise to turn down the job immediately. Tears streamed down Isabel's face. She realized she had completely forgotten, or perhaps deliberately buried, that traumatic incident. Deshawn's large hand reached out from the row behind her, briefly touching her shoulder. A small gesture of solidarity. Why didn't you report this abuse earlier, Mrs. Chun? Maya asked gently. He made me sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. Said if I talked, he'd have me instantly deported. I am a citizen, but I was scared. He has absolute power. What changed your mind today? Patricia looked directly at Isabel, her gaze unwavering. I saw her jump on the news. I saw her so desperate to escape him. She would rather die in that freezing river. And I thought, I can't stay quiet anymore. Not if my silence helps him trap her again. Maya's next witness was James Williams, Charles's former personal driver, a black man in his 40s with a solemn demeanor. Mr. Williams described Charles Whitmore's behavior on the job. Abusive, controlling, racist. He'd make terrible comments about my intelligence, my appearance, called me boy multiple times, disrespecting my age and position. When I finally asked him to stop, he aggressively threatened to blacklist me from every driving and livery service in Chicago. Did he ever become physical with you? Once. I was driving Miss Isabel to meet friends he strongly disapproved of. He ordered me to immediately turn around. I calmly said Miss Isabel was an adult and had given me my directions. He punched the back of my seat, then grabbed my shoulder so hard I almost crashed the vehicle, screaming that I worked for him, not for her. What happened after that incident? He paid me $50,000 to sign an NDA and quit quietly. I desperately needed the money. My daughter has chronic medical bills, but I regret it every single day. I should have spoken up for Miss Isabel. The third witness was the most absolutely damaging to Charles's case. Dr. Patricia Chen, Charles's own psychiatrist, released from the protection of confidentiality by a direct court order. Dr. Chun, you've treated Charles Whitmore for 7 years. What is your professional diagnosis? Narcissistic personality disorder with severe control and rage issues, Dr. Chan stated clinically. Mr. Whitmore has chronic difficulty accepting that others have autonomy. He views people as mere extensions of himself, particularly his only daughter. When they assert independence, he experiences it as a profound betrayal and often becomes verbally or physically aggressive. In your professional opinion, is Charles Whitmore capable of truly acting in Isabel's best interest? No. His pathological need for control fundamentally supersedes any genuine concern for her actual well-being. The conservatorship filing is completely consistent with his established pattern, regaining absolute control by any and all means necessary. Charles's lawyers immediately tried objecting, tried discrediting the doctor, but the devastating damage was irrevocably done. The carefully constructed image of the concerned father had completely crumbled, revealing the desperate, abusive tyrant beneath. Judge Hammond called a short recess. In the hallway, Charles approached Isabel, flanked by his nervous lawyers. This isn't over, Isabel. You're destroying me, yes, but you are also destroying yourself. No one will hire you now. No one will trust the daughter who betrayed her father. You'll be infamous. Good, Isabel said quietly, finally claiming her power. Let them know. Let everyone know what you really are. Because I'm done protecting your fragile reputation while you systematically destroy my life. You ungrateful. No, I was never grateful for a prison, even one that was gilded in gold. And I will never thank you for treating me like property instead of treating me like your daughter. She walked away, Deshawn instantly beside her. Charles stood entirely alone, his lawyers looking visibly uncomfortable, his empire of control finally and definitively collapsing around him. When court resumed, Maya called her final, crucial witness, Isabel Whitmore. Isabel took the stand, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Maya's questions were gentle but extremely firm, meticulously walking her through 29 years of relentless control, psychological manipulation, and emotional abuse disguised as protection. Isabel answered honestly, her voice growing remarkably stronger and more certain with each question she answered. Then Gerald Stevens stood for cross-examination, his approach immediately brutal and cutting. Ms. Whitmore, you've been in ongoing psychiatric therapy since age 13. Is that correct? Yes. After my mother died, I sought help. You've been prescribed powerful anti-anxiety medication multiple times. Yes, for anxiety. And yet, you attempted suicide just 4 days ago. No. I tried to escape my father's absolute control. Isabel corrected, her eyes flashing. There's a significant difference. Is there, Ms. Whitmore? You jumped off a bridge into freezing water. Because I was desperate. Because my father was forcibly coercing me into an arranged marriage and I saw no other immediate way out. She stated clearly. That was an act of desperation and escape, Mr. Stevens, not a sign of mental illness. And the fact you're attempting to pathologize a woman's desperate escape from chronic abuse says far more about this systemic institution than it says about me. Silence descended, heavy and absolute. Gerald Stevens quickly tried another angle. You have formed an intense attachment to Mr. Carter, your former security guard. Deshawn saved my life. Yes, I am profoundly grateful. Isn't it possible you are simply replacing your father's control with another man's authority? No. Isabel looked directly across the courtroom at Deshawn, a small, genuine smile curving her lips. Deshawn has never once tried to control me. He supported my choices, even when those choices cost him his job. He has shown me what respect looks like, what actual genuine care looks like. And that's why I trust him, Mr. Stevens, because he sees me as a person, not property. Gerald changed tactics one last time. If conservatorship is denied, what will you, a woman who has never worked, realistically do? I will get a job, find an apartment. I will build a life entirely on my own terms. With what money? Your father controls your extensive trust fund, which he will undoubtedly close access to. Then I'll work, she insisted. I have degrees, I have skills. I'll figure it out. I am capable. You've never held a real job in your life, Stevens pressed. Because my father never allowed it, Isabel countered. But I'm allowing it now, and that's the entire point of this hearing. I am an adult capable of making my own choices, good or bad, successful or messy. That is precisely what freedom means. Judge Hammond spoke, his voice dry and authoritative. I've heard enough testimony and evidence. I will issue my official ruling tomorrow morning. Court is adjourned. That night, Isabel couldn't sleep a wink. She sat huddled in Haven House's quiet common room, sipping cold tea. Deshawn found her there just after midnight. Tomorrow changes everything, she said quietly, staring into the dark. He won't rule for your father, Deshawn stated with calm certainty. You don't know that. Hammond favors power. I know what I saw today. You were incredible, he told her, sitting down close beside her. Everyone saw the truth, that you're strong, capable, and you are fighting desperately for your freedom. That matters more than his reputation. Isabel turned to him, the vulnerability raw in her eyes. Deshawn, what are we, really? He took a deep breath. I don't know the exact label, Isabel, but I know I'm not walking away now. Whatever the judge decides tomorrow, I'm still right here. Why? You barely know me. I'm complicated. I know you jumped into a freezing river rather than lose yourself completely. I know you stood up to one of the most powerful, dangerous men in Chicago and won the day. I know you're brave and real and absolutely worth fighting for, he said, gently taking her hand. Maybe that's more than enough to start with. Isabel leaned her head against his shoulder, finally finding comfort. After tomorrow, if I'm definitively free, I want to figure this out, whatever this turns out to be. Me too, he murmured. The next morning, the courtroom was even more packed. Media representatives and cameras were everywhere. Charles was sitting stiffly, looking superficially confident, his lawyers readying their appeal strategy. Judge Hammond entered the room, wearing a newly sober expression. Everyone stood quickly. He sat, reviewed his notes for what felt like an eternity, and then looked directly at Isabel, his eyes surprisingly kind. Ms. Whitmore, I have thoroughly reviewed all testimony and evidence presented. This has been an unusual, deeply distressing case. Your father's petition painted you as mentally incompetent, requiring lifetime protection. The evidence presented under oath showed something dramatically different. Isabel held her breath, the air thick with tension. Testimony from Mr. Whitmore's own psychiatrist, combined with the consistent accounts from multiple former employees, paints a stark picture of a controlling, abusive parent using every legal and financial means at his disposal to maintain power over an adult daughter. Your so-called suicide attempt was, in its proper context, a desperate and logical escape from years of relentless manipulation and control. That, Ms. Whitmore, is not evidence of legal incompetence. That is definitive evidence of a woman fiercely fighting for her autonomy. Charles's face instantly turned a frightening shade of purple. His lawyers were frantically whispering and passing notes. Therefore, Judge Hammond concluded, his voice ringing with finality, I am denying the petition for conservatorship in its entirety. Ms. Whitmore is deemed a competent adult with full legal and financial autonomy. Furthermore, due to the established pattern of abuse and surveillance, I am issuing a permanent restraining order. Charles Whitmore, you are to have no contact, direct or indirect, with your daughter for a minimum period of 1 year. If she chooses to reach out after that time, that is her right, but you will not contact, surveil, or interfere with her life in any way. Any violation will result in immediate jail time. The courtroom erupted in cheers, gasps, and frantic activity. Maya hugged Isabel tightly. Deshawn's hand found hers across the bench, squeezing gently, a silent promise. Across the aisle, Charles Whitmore sat in stunned, defeated shock. His decades-long empire of control had finally been legally shattered. Outside the courthouse, a massive crowd of media swarmed. Maya deftly handled them, running interference while Isabel and Deshawn swiftly escaped through a little-used side entrance. They walked silently toward Grant Park, needing air, space, and distance from the madness. "I'm free," Isabel whispered, still processing the immensity of the ruling. "I'm actually legally free." "You are," Deshawn affirmed. "And I have no money, no apartment, no realistic plan. My father will probably cut me off completely, just as he threatened." "Probably," Deshawn agreed, looking at the city skyline. "So, I'm free and completely broke, and I have to start completely over at 29. Deshawn smiled, a genuine, dazzling smile. "Sounds exactly like freedom to me." Isabel laughed. A real, genuine, joyful sound. Maybe the very first genuine laugh of her entire life. "It does, doesn't it?" They sat down on a worn park bench overlooking Lake Michigan. The same vast, cold water she had jumped into just 4 days ago, desperate and trapped. Now she was sitting here, free and simultaneously terrified and exhilarated. "What now, Isabel?" Deshawn asked softly. "Now, I figure out exactly who Isabel Whitmore is when she is not defined as Charles Whitmore's daughter." She looked at him, her eyes bright with possibility. "And I'd like you to be there for that if you want to be." "I want to be. Even though I'm a complete mess," she warned, smiling slightly. "Even though I don't know how to do my own laundry or pay utility bills or even properly exist in the real world." "Everyone's a mess, Isabel," he chuckled, pulling her closer. "The difference is you're finally free to be your kind of beautiful mess, instead of performing his perfect, sterile version of you." She kissed him then. It was a soft, tentative kiss that tasted intensely like new hope and fresh beginnings. When they pulled apart, Deshawn was grinning broadly. "So that's what we are," he said. "What?" "Two people figuring it out together, one day at a time." "I like that designation." "Me too." 6 months later, Isabel stood in her tiny studio apartment in the diverse, bustling neighborhood of Logan Square. It was small, affordable, and unequivocally hers. She wore comfortable jeans and a green Starbucks apron, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, zero makeup. She looked nothing like the flawlessly polished Whitmore heiress. She looked authentic. Deshawn arrived after his shift at Haven House, where he now worked full-time as the security director, having quickly impressed the staff. They had grown incredibly close over these months, slowly, carefully building something solid and real. "How was work, barista?" he asked, kissing her hello. "Exhausting. I made 73 lattes, got yelled at by a customer because his foam was subpar, and my feet are killing me," she sighed, leaning into him. "It was absolutely perfect. Perfect. Because it's mine. My job, my choices, my life." She grinned, stirring the pasta sauce. "Though I'm applying to grad school next month. Social work, maybe. I want to help people like the brave women at Haven House." "You'd be incredibly good at that, Isabel." They cooked dinner together, simple pasta and vegetables. Nothing fancy, but made with their own hands, prepared on their own time. Real life. Messy, imperfect, and beautiful. "Have you heard from your father?" Deshawn asked gently, sensing the need for the conversation. "No. The restraining order officially ends next month. I don't know if I'll ever reach out." Isabel was quiet for a moment, thoughtful. "Part of me hopes he's getting help, that he's maybe changed. But I know that's probably not realistic. And if he hasn't, then I have the life I built without him. I have you. I have my job. I have tangible plans for my future. He can't take that away from me anymore." After dinner, they walked through their neighborhood. Diverse, loud, palpably real. Nothing like the sterile perfection of the Gold Coast. "This feels like home, you know?" Isabel said, smiling up at the streetlights. 6 months ago, I thought I had absolutely nothing left to live for. Now I realize I had everything to live for. I just had to be brave enough to step out and claim it." "You were always brave, Isabel. You just needed someone else to believe it with you." They stopped at a small park, watching kids play basketball under the sodium lamps. Real, mundane life happening all around them. "Thank you," Isabel said quietly, "for jumping in after me, for standing by me in court, for showing me what freedom actually looks like. Thank you for being brave enough to jump, for fighting for yourself so hard, for showing me that sometimes doing the right thing, even when it's hard, actually works out. They stood together. Two people who had found each other in the worst, most desperate moment and built something durable and beautiful from the wreckage. Not perfect, not easy, but real. What's next for us? Deshawn asked, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. Everything? Isabel affirmed, looking up at the vast Chicago night sky. Grad school, a career helping people, maybe eventually my own place that's bigger than a shoebox. A life built entirely on my own terms. And us? He prompted. Us too, she smiled. All of it. The scary, messy, profoundly beautiful reality of actually living. They walked home hand in hand. Two people who had deliberately chosen freedom over comfort, truth over convenience, and chosen each other over every societal expectation. The Chicago River flowed nearby, silently. The same water that had almost taken Isabel's life had instead given her a brand new one. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is jump. And sometimes, someone brave enough jumps right in after you. How did this story impact you? If you believe in fighting prejudice together, type Unity wins. Share your thoughts. Remember to subscribe to Racism Route for more transformative stories that inspire change.